Why an emergency fund is essential. Your financial lifeline.
Let's talk about life for a second. It's unpredictable, isn't it? One day everything's going smoothly, and the next your car breaks down. The roof starts leaking, or you get hit with a medical bill you didn't see coming.
That's life, folks.
Emergencies don't send you a calendar invite. They just show up unannounced and demand your attention. And here's a harsh reality. If you're not prepared, those emergencies can knock you flat on your back financially.
They can turn what should be a minor inconvenience into a full-blown crisis. But here's the good news. You don't have to live like that. You can take control of your finances and face life's curveballs with confidence.
How? By building an emergency fund.
Now, before you roll your eyes and think, yeah, Dave, I've heard this before. Let me ask you something. If your air conditioning went out tomorrow and the repair bill was $1,500, how would you pay for it? Would you have to pull out the credit card, adding more debt to the pile? Or would you have the peace of mind knowing you could write a check and handle it without batting an eye?
That's the difference an emergency fund makes. It's not just a pile of money sitting there. It's a shield that protects you from financial disaster. It turns life's emergencies into nothing more than inconveniences.
And let me tell you, there's no better feeling than knowing you're prepared. Think about this. According to recent studies, a staggering percentage of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without going into debt. That's not okay, folks. Living paycheck to paycheck with no cushion is like walking a tightrope with no safety net. One slip and you're in free fall. But it doesn't have to be that way. An emergency fund is your safety net. It's the thing that keeps you from panicking when life throws you a curveball. And trust me, life will throw you curveballs. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Let me tell you a quick story. Once spoke to a couple who had always been winging it financially. They had decent jobs, but they never prioritized saving. One day, their car broke down completely out of the blue. They didn't have the cash to fix it, so they put it on a credit card. A few months later, their furnace went out. Boom! Another hit to the credit card. Before they knew it, they were drowning in debt, paying hundreds of dollars a month in interest alone. That's when they finally woke up and decided to change. They got serious, saved their first $1,000 emergency fund, and eventually built it up to cover 6 months of expenses. Fast forward a couple of years, and guess what?
Their car broke down again.
But this time, they didn't panic. They didn't argue. They just pulled money from their emergency fund, paid for the repair, and moved on with their lives. No debt, no stress. That's the power of preparation. And here's the thing. An emergency fund isn't about wealth. It's about stability. It doesn't matter if you're making $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year. If you don't have a plan for the unexpected, you're vulnerable. But if you've got that fund in place, you're ready. You're in control. And that control is priceless. So let's be clear. Building an emergency fund is not optional. It's not something you do when you feel like it or when things calm down. It's something you prioritize right now. Because emergencies aren't going to wait for you to be ready. They're coming whether you like it or not. And the only question is, will you be prepared? The good news is, you don't have to be a financial genius to make this happen.
You just have to make a decision to start.
And once you do, you'll be amazed at how much peace of mind it brings.
Here's my challenge to you. Don't wait. Don't put this off. Start building your emergency fund today. Because when life happens, and you're going to want that safety net. And you're going to want that safety net. And trust me, you'll be so glad you took the time to make it happen.
Let's go.
Wow, what an emergency fund is and what it isn't.
Let's get something straight right off the bat. An emergency fund is not your fun money. It's not your vacation savings. And it's definitely not your down payment on a new car. It's not the money you dip into because you found a great deal on a TV or because your favorite band just announced tour dates.
No.
An emergency fund is your financial firewall. It's the money you set aside to protect yourself from life's big, ugly surprises, the kind that make your stomach drop and your pulse race. And if you don't have this firewall in place, you're playing with firewall in place. You're playing with fire. Because life happens, folks. Cars break down. Kids get sick. Jobs disappear. And when it does, you want to be ready, not scrambling. Let me tell you what an emergency fund is. It's your peace of mind. It's the buffer between you and financial disaster. It's what keeps you from reaching for the credit card every time something goes wrong. Think of it as your insurance policy for the unexpected. But here's the deal. Just like you wouldn't dip into your car insurance to buy new tires, you don't touch your emergency fund for anything that isn't a true emergency. And let me tell you, emergencies are not, I'm tired of my couch or I really want to upgrade my phone. Emergencies are when your heater breaks in the middle of winter, or your kid needs an emergency root canal, or heaven forbid, you lose your job and need to keep the lights on while you find a new one. So how do you decide what's an emergency?
Here's a simple rule of thumb. If it's not urgent, necessary, and unexpected, it's not an emergency. Let me break that down. First, urgent means it can't wait that down. First, urgent.
If your car won't start, that's urgent. If your dishwasher broke, but you can wash dishes by hand for a while, that's not urgent. Second, necessaries means it's something you truly need.
Fixing your car so you can get to work is necessary.
Buying a new set of rims for your car because they look cool, not necessary. Finally, necessary. Finally, unexpected means it's something you couldn't have planned for. Your furnace giving out in January, unexpected. Christmas in December, not unexpected. You've had 12 months to plan for that one. See the difference? Now, here's where people get into trouble. They treat their emergency fund like a piggy bank instead of a fortress. They dip into it for things that feel important in the moment but aren't true emergency. And every time they do, they weaken their financial safety net. Don't fall into that trap. You need to guard your emergency fund like a hawk. That money is sacred. It's not there to make your life more convenient. It's there to keep your life from falling apart when things go sideways. I once talked to a guy who had built up a solid emergency fund, $10,000. He was doing great. But then he decided to dip into it for once in lifetime vacation. He told himself he'd replace the money when he got back.
Guess what happened? Life happened. 2 months after his vacation, he lost his job. And because he drained his emergency fund, he had no safety net. He ended up maxing out his credit cards just to stay afloat, and it took him years to recover.
Folks, that's why you don't mess with your emergency fund. It's not there to fund your fun. It's there to fund your survival.
And let's be real. Emergencies don't care about your timing. They don't wait until you're ready or until you've had a good month at work. They show up when they show up and they show up and they don't ask for permission. That's why you need to be intentional about building and protecting your emergency fund. Treat it with the respect it deserves. Because when life throws you a curveball, you'll be so glad you did. So here's your takeaway. Your emergency fund is not a nice to have. It's a must have. It's your first line of defense against financial chaos. And when you use it the right way, for true emergencies, it will save you more stress and more money than you can imagine. But it starts with understanding what it's for, and just as importantly, what it's not for. Get this right, and you'll be light years ahead of most people when it comes to handling life's surprises. Let's make it happen. You've got this.
How much do you really need in your emergency fund?
Let's cut to the chase. How much money do you actually need in your emergency fund? That's the $1 million question. Or more realistically, the $1,000 question. And here's the answer. It depends, but don't worry. I'm not going to leave you hanging with a vague response. We're going to break this down so you can figure out the exact number that's right for you. Because your emergency fund isn't about hitting some magic number everyone else is talking about. It's about protecting you and your family from financial disaster when life goes off the rails. And trust me, it will. Your job is to be ready. Step one is simple. You start with $1,000. That's your baby emergency fund. It's not a full safety net, but it's enough to catch the small emergencies that pop up while you're working on getting out of debt and stabilizing your finances. And let me tell you, $1,000 can go a long way when you're focused and disciplined. It can cover a car repair, an unexpected medical bill, or a broken appliance. Is it going to handle every situation? No, but it's a whole lot better than nothing. And here's the kicker. This isn't just about the money. It's about the mindset. Saving that first $1,000 gets you in the habit of putting yourself first, of prioritizing your future over your impulses. It's the foundation you're going to build the rest of your financial house on.
Now, once you've knocked out your debt, except for the house, it's time to level up. That's when you focus on building a fully funded emergency fund. What does that mean? It means saving 3 to 6 months worth of expenses.
And I'm not talking about your dream lifestyle here. I'm talking about your bare bones survival mode expenses. The stuff you need to keep the lights on, the fridge full, and the roof over your head. If you lost your job tomorrow, how much would you need each month to cover the essentials? That's your target. For most people, this comes out to somewhere between $10,000 and $5,000. But again, it depends on your situation.
Let me give you an example.
If you're single, renting, and have a stable job, you might lean toward the lower end of that range. 3 months worth of expenses is probably enough. But if you're married, have kids, and one of you works in an unpredictable industry, you're going to want to aim for the higher end, closer to 6 months. And if you're self-employed or your income fluctuates, you might even want to stretch that to 9 months. The point is, your emergency fund needs to reflect your reality, not someone else's. It's about what gives you peace of mind. So you can sleep at night knowing you're covered no matter what happens. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, Dave, that's a lot of money.
How am I ever going to save up that much? And let me tell you, I get it. It can feel overwhelming when you're just starting out.
But don't let the big number scare you into inaction. You don't have to save it all at once. You take it one step at a time. Just like climbing a mountain, you focus on the next step, not the summit.
Maybe you save $500 this month.
Then $1,000 the next. Before you know it, you're halfway there. And trust me, the progress is addictive. Once you start seeing that account grow, you'll be motivated to keep going. Here's the beautiful thing about a fully funded emergency fund. It changes the way you live. It gives you the power to make decisions based on what's best for you, not what you can afford in the moment. When you have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in the bank, you're not living in fear of every unexpected bill or job loss. You're not controlled by the paycheck cycle. You're free to take a breath, free to say no to things that don't align with your values, free to focus on building wealth instead of putting out financial fires.
And let me be clear, this isn't about being paranoid or hoarding money. This is about being wise. This is about taking care of your family and your future. Life is unpredictable, but your response doesn't have to be with a fully funded emergency fund. You'll have the confidence to face whatever comes your way, knowing you've prepared for it. So don't wait, figure out your number, make a plan, and start building your fund today. Because the sooner you do, the sooner you'll experience the peace and freedom that come with being financially prepared. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Now let's start building your emergency fund today.
Let's get down to business. How do you actually build your emergency fund? Because knowing you need one is great, but knowledge without action is worthless. And let me be honest with you, it's not going to happen by accident.
No one's going to knock on your door and hand you $1,000 for your emergency fund, much less 3 to 6 months of expenses. If you're waiting for the stars to align, for that raise to come through, or for life to settle down, you're going to be waiting forever.
The time to start is now, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. Because every day you put this off is another day you're vulnerable to life surprises. So let's talk about the steps you can take to start building your emergency fund today. Step 1 is simple but powerful. Make it a priority. You have to decide right here and right now, that building your emergency fund is more important than whatever shiny thing is trying to steal your attention and your money. This isn't about finding extra money lying around, because let's face it, there's no such thing as extra money. This is about putting your emergency fund at the top of your list. That means every time you get paid, the first thing you do, before paying bills, before groceries, before anything else, is put money toward your emergency fund. And don't tell me you can't afford it. You can't afford not to. If you're serious about this, you'll find a way. Step 2, cut out the fluff. I'm talking about the unnecessary expenses that are eating up your paycheck and keeping you from building your emergency fund.
Do you really need that daily $6 coffee?
That subscription service you barely use. Those meals out that could easily be cooked at home for a fraction of the cost. Look, I'm not saying you can never treat yourself again, but right now it's time to tighten the belt. Every dollar you save by cutting out the fluff is a dollar closer to your emergency fund. And trust me, those small sacrifices add up fast. The question you have to ask yourself is this: what's more important, short convenience or long-term security? Because you can't have both. Step 3, find ways to make extra money. If cutting back isn't enough, it's time to increase your income. And before you start with the excuses, let me remind you that you have options. You can pick up a part-time job, sell things you don't need, or offer your skills as a freelancer. You've got a car. Drive for a ride-share service. Got stuff sitting in your attic or garage. Sell it online or have a yard sale. You'd be amazed at how much money you can free up by getting creative and hustling a little. And here's the best part. Every extra dollar you make goes straight into your emergency fund. No detours, no distractions, just results. Step 4, automate your savings. The easiest way to save money is to never see it in the first place. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to a separate savings account every time you get paid. Even if it's just $25 or $50 at first, automation makes saving a habit instead of a chore. And make sure that savings account is out of sight and out of mind. This isn't a spend later fund. It's your emergency fund. Treat it like a vault that only opens when life truly throws you a curveball. Step 5, stay focused and consistent. Building an emergency fund doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen if you're consistent. That means saving a little bit every paycheck, saying no to unnecessary spending, and staying committed to your goal.
And here's a tip to keep you motivated. Track your progress. Whether it's a spreadsheet, an app, or even just a sticky note on your fridge, watching that number grow will fire you up to keep going. Every dollar saved is a step closer to financial security, and every step closer is worth celebrating.
Finally, let's talk about mindset. Because at the end of the day, building an emergency fund isn't just about money. It's about who you're becoming in the process. It's about who you're becoming in the process. It's about taking control of your life, making sacrifices now so you can live with peace and freedom later. It's about proving to yourself that you're capable of setting a goal and achieving it. And when you build your emergency fund, you're not just preparing for the unexpected. You're building confidence, resilience, and the kind of financial stability that most people only dream of. So what are you waiting for? Start today. Open that savings account. Make that first transfer. Cut out the fluff and hustle if you need to. Don't let another day go by without taking action.
Because every day you wait is a day. You're leaving yourself exposed to the what ifs of life. And trust me, there's no better feeling than knowing you're ready for whatever comes your way.
Let's do this. You've got this.
Now, go make it happen. Yeah. How to protect your emergency fund and keep it safe.
Let's talk about something critical, protecting your emergency fund. Because let me tell you, it's one thing to build that fund. It's another thing entirely to keep it safe. This isn't just some stack of money sitting in a savings account. This is your financial lifeline. It's what keeps you from spiraling into debt when life throws you a curveball. But here's the deal. If you don't guard it with everything you've got, it's going to disappear faster than you can say unexpected expense. And trust me, the enemy isn't always some big emergency. More often than not, it's you. That's right. You are the biggest threat to your emergency fund. So let's talk about how to protect it and keep it exactly where it belongs. Out of reach until you really need it. First things first, you need to put your emergency fund in the right place. And no, that doesn't mean a cookie jar or under your mattress. It means a separate savings account. Emphasis on LISA separate. This money doesn't belong in your checking account where it's tempting to accidentally spend it on takeout or a shiny new gadget. It needs to be in a place where it's accessible for true emergencies, but not so easy to reach that you're tempted to dip into it for non-essentials. Look for a high-yield savings account at a bank or credit union. It's safe, it earns a little interest, and most importantly, it's out of sight and out of mind. Now, let's talk about boundaries. You've got to set some serious rules for what qualifies as an emergency. And let me tell you, I'm bored and want a vacation is not an emergency. Neither is my favorite band is coming to town and I have to buy tickets. An emergency is when your car breaks down, your roof starts leaking, or you suddenly lose your job. It's urgent, it's necessary, and it's unexpected. Those are the three tests. If the expense doesn't pass all three, you leave your emergency fund alone. Period. No exceptions. And let me warn you, the moment you start bending those rules, even just a little, is the moment you put your financial security at risk. So be disciplined. Be ruthless. Protect that fund like your financial future depends on it, because it does. Another key to keeping your emergency fund safe is accountability. If you're married, you and your spouse need to be on the same page about how and when to use this money. Sit down together, agree on the rules, and hold each other accountable. If you're single, find a trusted friend or family member who can help keep you honest. Someone who will call you out if you're about to blow your emergency fund on something dumb. Accountability isn't about taking away your freedom. It's about helping you stay strong when temptation comes knocking. And let's not forget about replenishing your fund after you use it. Because here's the reality. Emergencies will happen. That's why you have the fund in the first place. But the moment you tap into it, your priority becomes building it back up. This isn't optional, folks. If you drain your emergency fund and then just move on like nothing happened, you're setting yourself up for disaster. So the second you use that money, you shift gears, you cut back on non-essentials, maybe even pick up a little extra work, and you refill that fund as fast as possible. Because the last thing you want is to be caught without it when the next emergency hits. And let me address something I hear all the time.
Dave, shouldn't I invest my emergency fund so it can grow faster? No, absolutely not. Your emergency fund isn't an investment. It's insurance.
The goal isn't to make it grow. The goal is to make sure it's there when you need it. Investments come with risks. And the last thing you want is for your emergency fund to lose value because the stock market had a bad day. Keep it liquid, keep it accessible, and keep it safe. This is not the time to be chasing returns. This is the time to play it smart.
Finally, let's talk about mindset, because protecting your emergency fund isn't just about where you put it or how you use it. It's about how you think about it. You've got to see this money as sacred. It's not a backup vacation fund.
It's not a rainy day shopping spree. It's your fortress. It's the wall between you and financial chaos. And when you treat it with that level of respect, you're not just protecting your money, you're protecting your peace of mind. You're giving yourself the freedom to face life's challenges without fear, knowing you've got a plan in place. So here's the bottom line. Build your emergency fund, put it in the right place, set the right boundaries, and guard it with everything you've got. Because when life happens, and you'll be ready. And that, my friends, is a feeling no amount of money can buy. Let's make it happen. You got this. You've got this. Take action today. Your emergency fund is the first step toward financial freedom. Here's the truth, folks. Knowing you need an emergency fund isn't enough. understanding why it's important isn't enough. Even having a number in mind for how much you need isn't enough. Because nothing changes until you take action. And let me tell you, the time for action isn't tomorrow, next week, or when life slows down. The time is now, right now, because every day you wait is another day you're leaving yourself and your family vulnerable. Emergencies don't care about your timing. They don't check your calendar or your bank balance. They show up when they want to, and when they do, the only thing standing between you and a financial crisis is the decision you make today. Let's get one thing straight. Starting your emergency fund isn't about waiting for the perfect time. There's no perfect time, and if you're waiting for it, you're going to be waiting forever. Maybe you're thinking, but Dave, money's tight right now. I get it. But money is always going to feel tight if you don't take control. This isn't about having extra money. It's about making your emergency fund a priority. It's about saying this matters more than that dinner out, that new gadget, or that impulse buy. Because let's be honest, those things don't really matter. What matters is knowing you're prepared for the unexpected, knowing you can handle life's curveballs without going into debt, and knowing you've taken the first step toward real financial freedom. And let me tell you, that first step is powerful.
Saving your first $1,000 might seem small compared to the big emergencies life can throw at you, but it's a game changer. It's a foundation.
It's a signal to yourself and to your family that you're serious about taking control of your money. And once you start, you'll be amazed at how much momentum you can build. Saving $1,000 leads to paying off debt. Paying off debt leads to a all fully funded emergency fund. And a fully funded emergency fund leads to peace of mind and the freedom to build wealth. But it all starts with that first step.
The hardest part is getting started, but once you do, there's no stopping you. Now, I know some of you are thinking, what if I mess up? What if I start saving and then something happens and I have to spend it all? Let me tell you something. That's not failure. That's exactly what your emergency fund is for. Life is unpredictable and you're going to face emergencies. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The goal isn't to avoid ever using your emergency fund. The goal is to have one in place so you're ready when you need it. And if you do have to dip into it, guess what? You rebuild it. You pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Because the only real failure is doing nothing. The only way you lose is by not trying.
So, here's my challenge to you. Don't let today end without taking one step toward building your emergency fund. I don't care if it's $5, $50, or $500. Just start. Open a separate savings account.
Transfer a little money into it. Look around your house for things you can sell. Cut one unnecessary expense from your budget this week. Do something, anything, to get the ball rolling.
Because every dollar you save is a step closer to the peace and freedom you deserve. And let me tell you that peace is worth every sacrifice.
And remember, this isn't just about money. It's about who you're becoming in the process. When you build an emergency fund, you're not just preparing for life surprises. You're building discipline, confidence, and resilience.
You're proving to yourself that you're capable of taking control of your finances and your future. And that's a gift no one can take away from you. So stop waiting. Stop making excuses. Stop letting fear or procrastination hold you back. Start building your emergency fund today and don't stop until you've reached your goal. Because the sooner you start, the sooner you'll experience the peace and security that come with being financially prepared. This is your moment. This is your chance to take control. Don't let it slip away. You've got this. Let's make it happen.